The following program contains graphic material, including offensive language. Viewer discretion.
Because I want to make sure that when we drop our kids off at school, they're getting educated, not indoctrinated. I want to make sure that our kids, when they go into those school doors, are safe. Today, and the events that took place in Texas are a stark and humbling reminder of just how precious life is. And what an incredible gift that each of us has been given by our Creator to stand here today. Every single life has value, and the most vulnerable among us should be those that we are fighting for and protecting the most. And I can assure you, in my administration, that's exactly what we will do. We will make sure that when a kid is in the womb, they're as safe as they are in a classroom, the workplace, a nursing home, because every stage of life has value.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders said, "We will make sure that when a kid is in the womb, they are as safe as they are in a classroom." I'm sorry, but who wants to tell her? What makes this even more insane, she gave this acceptance speech for winning the Arkansas gubernatorial primary on May 24th. That is the same day as the Uvalde shooting, in which 19 elementary school students were killed in their classroom. Her message on the day that those kids were shot and killed in class is that she's going to make sure to keep kids just as safe as they are in class. So if you're trying to suggest that maybe you're going to keep someone safe, maybe you avoid the one place on the planet that everyone is feeling especially uneasy about on that particular day. And aside from her tone deafness, there's also the fact that she's just spouting a bunch of platitudes that aren't actually grounded in reality. She says she's going to make sure kids are safe in the womb. There are no kids in wombs. In fact, because this is in reference to abortion, what she's actually referencing in 99% of scenarios is a zygote. A zygote, for those who may have missed every science class ever, is not a kid. It's a fertilized egg cell. It's not viable, it doesn't have a heartbeat, it doesn't look like anything because it's a cell and not a kid. And Sanders ostensibly knows that, but she's not trying to relay any semblance of factual information. She's trying to elicit an emotional response. She's trying to manipulate her supporters, and so she uses words like kid to describe a eukaryotic cell because she traffics in deceit. And look, all of this goes to show the extent to which Republicans will refuse to acknowledge objective reality. That Sarah Huckabee Sanders is so hell-bent on willing into existence this alternate reality where schools are still safe is a testament to her inability to see beyond her own bias. She wants to pretend that gun violence doesn't exist because her party is owned by the gun lobby. And so even on the day that 19 kids were killed in a classroom in one of the most horrific mass shootings since Sandy Hook, still she's pretending that classrooms are some little sanctuaries in this country and not the perpetual target that they actually are. Because God forbid you acknowledge objective reality when it contradicts with your partisan worldview. And of course, the irony here is that classrooms could be safe. In fact, most of America could be safe. But it's actually Republican policies that ensure that it's not. Here's the thing, no other country in the world has these mass shootings, and yet they have mental illness, they have low rates of religion, they have fatherlessness, they have more than one entrance into sensitive locations, they have pornography, they have all of that. What they don't have is the guns. That's the difference. We have the guns, we have the mass shootings. This isn't rocket science here. So while Republicans pretend that classrooms are safe, the fact is that the reason that they're not is because of Republican policies themselves, wherein they've spent the last 3 decades blocking any meaningful common sense gun safety legislation. The shootings are uniquely American, and they are a policy choice by one party that has their re-election campaigns funded by a gun lobby that exists solely to sell more guns. Seem like a good system? I didn't think so. So look, do I expect Sarah Huckabee Sanders, of all people, not to be a tone-deaf shill for the farthest right fringes of her base? Of course I expect that. But her supporters should recognize the danger in electing someone who is so willfully blind to what's actually happening in this country today. Not only does she refuse to acknowledge the realities of gun violence, but she also stakes that claim on this wholly unpopular, un-American, Christo-fascist position that the government can tell a person what they can or can't do with their own body. And while I'm not sure that there's enough of an opposition to someone like that dad in Arkansas, where she's the Republican nominee for governor, I really hope that people across the country who are considering either not voting for Democrats or voting for Republicans can see someone like this and recognize that this is where the modern GOP is. They want to ensure that weapons of war flood our streets while simultaneously stripping you of your bodily autonomy. If that's not the future you want for yourself or your kids, then show up at the ballot box, because they are already broadcasting that this is the future they're thrusting upon everyone in the United States.
Hey everybody, it's Jeff. Well, hope everybody had a great weekend. Certainly a busy weekend for many. There was a lot of protest marches, and not just in the United States, but in other countries that other people just, didn't like what the Supreme Court had done last week. And, what affects the United States, affects everybody, in a way, around the world. And, oddly enough, and I know this, Russia, the country that, everybody, hates right now because of what's going on in Ukraine, and rightly so. But Russia, for decades, has had legalized abortion over there for their women. And their solution to, people using abortion too much is to promote motherhood over there, which they say has, put a dent in the number of abortions that had been going on there. And plus their government supports the women that have babies to make sure that they're able to care for the child. They do a whole lot more for their mothers over there than we do in the United States here. So when you hear people bitching about Russia, maybe they ought to sit down and just kind of go over what Russia does for its people over there. Now I realize it doesn't have a perfect record over there, okay? There's a lot of places in Russia that are just impoverished, okay? But when it comes to creating, certain things that the government will do for their people over there, they really do, have a market here, basically, or they've cornered the market here on abortion specifically. Now, recently these days, there's been more conversation and people, taking sides on anti-abortion and abortion over there. But it's not such a hot potato item in Russia as it is in the United States, okay? So, and I think it's because over there, the way they select their leaders doesn't come around all the time, because we use abortion as a campaign issue to garner votes, where over there, their leaders are selected and they're just there forever. So it doesn't get this push like in the United States to, politicize something. Okay, so yes, over there in Russia, women have more rights than they do here. Okay, and we're supposed to, say that we have to be better than Russia. It makes me think, did all this anti-abortion crap begin because Russia was doing this for their people, and because we hate communism to the point of obsession in this country that we want to try to do the reverse of everything they try to do over there? Is this where this abortion thing really started, and not such a religious issue? That maybe, the people who were so spun about communism back during the Cold War years when they started, were just, they didn't want to follow anything Russia was doing, whether it worked or not, okay? And over time, it became such a good tool to use for elections that, you know, they started allowing the religious element to take part in it. You have to kind of re-examine that, because I think, there's got to be some kind of connection there. I think when you consider, how we were back after World War II, where we were just so against communism that, when people found out that in Russia they let women have abortions, and so people would say, well, they're a heathen society, the devil, and all this stuff. I can remember people saying such things like that, back in the late 70s, that it's an immoral country and all that. And maybe they were talking that way because of the fact that they were allowing women to have abortions back then, even before we had Roe versus Wade. So I think that there's some connection there, and the religious element took it as a mission on themselves to undo Roe versus Wade, no matter how long it took. And that's why, they're going to hang on to what the Supreme Court did last Friday, tooth and nail. It's not going to be an easy thing to undo it, okay? It's not going to be an easy thing to undo it. Like I mentioned in the last video, how long it took to get Roe versus Wade, it's going to take twice as long to get it back. So that's a sad reality that, I think there's a lot of energy out there, though, for women to fight what was taken away from them. And this is the first time the Supreme Court has ever taken away a right from its citizens, okay? They've never done this before. And now they're on a roll here of taking away all kinds of things after that, okay? Because abortion wasn't the only thing they struck down. They've been taking away rights. So you have to wonder, these people, these 5 or 6 justices here that are Republican, who can get their way essentially because the other justices are just it doesn't matter what they think, okay? Because they don't need their position. It just makes me wonder, these people who voted down party lines on the Roe versus Wade issue, they're very politicized. And when Susan Collins came out and said that, oh, I was lied to, they told me that they saw Roe versus Wade as the law of the land and all this and yada yada, and she says they lied to her. Well, I have to ask Susan Collins, well, if you know that they lied to you, and they were under oath, by the way, would it not be prudent to hold them accountable for lying under oath? I mean, isn't there a law against that sort of thing? You lied to Congress, and now these people, or they lied to the Senate, and now these people, shouldn't they be brought up on charges or something? I mean, if I went to a court, put my hand on the good book, and then turned around and lied, and they found out I did, do you think they would hesitate to punish me for that? Of course not. So why didn't Susan Collins add to her tirade here about being lied to and say that we need to go after these people for lying under oath? It's because they don't care, okay? She's saying that in order to cover her own ass, to make it look like she was not leaning one way or the other here on the issue, okay? That she was being middle of the road. And we all know that she doesn't support abortion any more than anybody else in the right wing does, okay? So the fact is that, she come out and said that and then never said anything about, well, we should go after these justices for lying under oath. I mean, hell, you could have them removed from the bench just for that. All right, so I don't see what the hell, why they get to lie under oath and do what they did Friday and still be justices. Okay? They all promised they weren't going to touch Roe versus Wade. Okay, and it was odd that they were all questioned about that. And they all said the same thing, that, they weren't going to do anything to change that, and then all of a sudden now they have. Okay? And they seem to be absolved of lying under oath. So what good is the oath anyway? If people like this can lie under oath, okay, then why should anybody ever believe a fucking thing anybody in the government says when they're under oath. Okay, whether it's a politician or a judge or whatnot, you know what I'm saying? Why should we ever believe anything they say now? Because apparently the oath doesn't mean a goddamn thing. And these people who lied under oath, okay, who put their hand on the good book before they open their yaps, all of a sudden these people now are all like, oh, we care about right and wrong, and you know it's wrong for women to have abortion. They don't care about right and wrong. People, it's never been about a moral stance with these fuckers, okay? It's never been about that. If these people had a moral stance on anything, and if they really cared about life in general, why would there be such a huge bunch of people fighting to survive when they have a child and they can't get help from the government for anything, basically, you know? Why are they always trying to take away things that people depend on to keep them going in life? Why are they always promising to attack and destroy Social Security? Okay, what wrong has Social Security ever done to this country that they have to go after it and remove it? Okay, you know, they act like all these things are no good for the country, yet they can't prove, how they've ruined the country. Okay, they can't prove it, and because they can't prove it, they simply spin the truth about these things in order to bully their base into siding with them. And people are so stupid on the right wing not to see bullshit or hear bullshit when it's coming at them. They don't check this stuff out. I mean, you wonder how the hell can people live their life in a country that depends on people being part of the government system and yet not be educated enough, not be inquisitive enough, not being, attuned to what's truthful out there, and still be allowed to be participants in the system. Okay, why should these people be allowed to vote? Okay, if they go to the voting booth and half of what's on the ballot they have absolutely no idea what it is. You know what I'm saying? When they see these ballot initiatives and and these things they want to fund, and they never heard anything about it, they don't know who supports it or what. How can these people vote on election day when they go there and the only thing they're there for is to vote for just a name, okay, and everything else they don't have any idea what it is, okay? They don't know. Okay, I don't see that. That to me is not how America has to work. Okay, if you want your people to be part of the system, then they got to be educated in such a way that they can be a benefit to the country and not a hindrance. And that's what we've had with the Republican Party for decades, is a hindrance party, that any progress that this country makes is a bad thing for them. Okay, because they got an interest in protecting their wealthy donors, okay, which a lot of people in this country really want to come down hard on because they don't pay their taxes. Just like the church doesn't pay taxes. The big business community doesn't pay their, and yet those are the things they defend. They defend big business, they defend the church, and these people are not even contributing to being in this country. Okay? And they're both heavily connected into politics. Okay? And don't get me started on that, but like I said, they're both intertwined in politics, and yet they get a free ride. Okay, they get handouts, subsidies. That's what they call them. They get subsidies there from the government on top of not paying their taxes. So everything with them is always a profit, and that's all the Republican Party cares about. Now, if they're against abortion, you have to wonder, what financial gain do they get from that? Okay, it's not just about, I think, about Clarence Thomas being spiteful, even though he said it as much years ago that he was going to make liberals' lives hell as a justice. Okay, but I think there's something else going on. I think there's money to be made by having abortions stopped in this country. I think there is. I think big money's being made to the Republicans on this issue, and I think people ought to figure out what that is and who's behind it. Okay? Because look, the Republicans, they lost the election. All right? They lost the presidential election. And had Trump won the election, okay, I'm pretty sure that this would have happened even now. Okay? I think the the overturning of Roe versus Wade would happen anyway, even under Trump. And so they had to find a different way to accomplish that. So Trump gave them three justices, I guess, to fill the bench. You know, he stacked the court, essentially, with people that he told to lie under oath to get them in there. All right, and that's what they did. They lied under oath, and then they got themselves put in the position of being on the Supreme Court. Then once they got there, they started, you know, working on a way to overturn Roe versus Wade. Okay, and I think that that's pretty much what it is. And I think that there had to have been money made. I mean, it's more than just donations from people who are in support of overturning Roe versus Wade. I think there was something else involved in this, you know, for them to be able to get this done the way they did it. There was a momentum beforehand of getting it done, and we all knew that they were always against it, but it seems to me like they really got a push after Trump was voted out to get this done, and I have to imagine that there was some mixed feelings, probably people who were really pissed off that Trump was voted out, and people who really have this, you know, the strong stance of being against abortion. The two minds coming together to create this momentum to overturn Roe versus Wade. You know, it seems to me like, you know, like I said in other videos, you know, Republicans are very well organized. Okay, they know what they need to do to get what they want. Even when they're the minority power, they're still in control of the game. Okay, and that's not the way it's supposed to be in this country. Okay, the majority is supposed to rule, not the minority. And you know, someone mentioned recently about the Electoral College, and I think it was Howard Stern on his radio show. And I usually don't listen to Howard Stern anyway. Okay, but there was a clip on YouTube that something he said, and it made perfect sense. You know, he says if it wasn't for the Electoral College, this wouldn't happen. And I'll explain why. He says that when the presidential election between Hillary and Trump, Hillary got the popular vote by about 3 million votes, okay? Trump got the electoral votes, and under our rules of election, only the electoral votes really count at the end of the day. It doesn't matter how many people more voted for the other side. It's the electoral votes that decide the fate of who wins and who loses. So under that rule, Trump gets seated as president, then he stacks the Supreme Court with justices that are loyal to him, okay? And then Roe versus Wade gets overturned. Okay, it doesn't matter that we have a Democrat president and the Democrats control the Senate and the House. Doesn't matter, because like I said, Republicans have the system, you know, memorized. They know how to do this thing. They're on top of the game all the time. Even when they're in the losing position, they know how to fucking continue. Okay, so they did this, and now here we are. And I have to think, you know, the Electoral College has always been a thorn in people's side in this country, because you go back and look at every presidential election we've had in this country over the last 50 years, you're gonna find that the majority of this country votes Democrat. Always has, okay? It always has. But the electoral vote always gives us what we don't want. Okay? And to me, I think that has to be changed. They either got to get rid of that system or change it, because it's not reflecting what the majority of this country wants. If we really care about majority rule, then the Electoral College would be abolished, okay? Because it doesn't make any sense. I mean, maybe at one time it did, when there were fewer people in this country, but now it seems to be in the way of people's desire. It's in the way, okay? And when the majority wins, okay, that's when the country seems to go better, you know, seems to be better at it. But even when the majority wins, the minority still has a clasp on what power they had, and they can still dictate the rules of the game. All right? And that's what makes more people frustrated with the system as a whole, because they're not seeing that voting matters any, okay? Even though so many people come out and vote, at the end of the day, a lot of these people's votes won't even be considered. Millions of votes won't be considered, you know, depending on how the outcome is. 3 million votes weren't even looked at in 2016. 3 million votes. That's 3 million people who voted should have stayed home because their vote didn't count. Doesn't matter. Even though Hillary got the majority, she wasn't seated. It was the fucking Electoral College. Now, if I was Hillary Clinton, I would have come out after that against the Electoral College and say, look, the majority said I should be president, and the minority over there says I shouldn't, and they're the ones that get the call here. How is this democratic? You know, I mean, that's what I would have done. I would have challenged the Electoral College on that issue, and I wouldn't have stopped. You know, and I think really, as a citizen here, we ought to start thinking about ways that we can either change that or get rid of it, okay? There's a lot of things that we have in our government today that really are not needed anymore, okay? They're not needed anymore, and we should really start streamlining the government by getting rid of things that serve no useful purpose, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? But, you know, we could probably save ourselves a lot of headache and a lot of money, okay? If we go, you know, step by step through what we got and say, well, this was enacted back in the old West days and it doesn't, you know, get rid of that. Or, you know, this is what, you know, is how we do things now, and it's too complicated and people don't like it. Get rid of it, you know. And I think there's a majority in the country here about people who would rather see that system gone, because it lets us down. Every time we have an election for president, it's often never the way we think or elected. And maybe that's the reason why the polling data is always off when we look at this stuff on the news and stuff. It's because they're getting actual raw polling data without the Electoral College getting in the middle between who they're calling and what they're getting. You know what I'm saying? They're just calling people or talking to people, and so they're getting this data. But what they don't factor into when they get in these polling data points and stuff is how many of those people they said one way or the other are actually going to have their votes counted. You know, because the Electoral College is there only, you know, picking what they need and discarding the rest. Okay, so anything that they're showing on the news really is skeptical. It's not even accurate. To whatever percentage point they say in there, it's not even that. Okay, it's even less than that, because they don't factor in the Electoral College in their figures. Okay, and that's really the important part of any polling data is, what are the Electoral College folks thinking, you know, or what are they going to do? I mean, look, even Trump was trying to cheat on that score. Remember, he selected a whole bunch of fake electorates to overturn the election. You know, what he called backup electorates or something, you know, people that didn't even, that shouldn't even have got that position. I mean, he openly tried to cheat by making it so damn obvious. I mean, talk about a guy that doesn't know how to cover his ass. I mean, no wonder he failed at so many business ventures. Jesus. All right, let's go to a commercial break. We'll be right back.
Dear CEO, what's it gonna take for you to do something? Yeah, do you even care?
Climate change affects all of us.
This is your chance to do something good.
Now, Jenny, the left is currently losing their minds over a couple of completely normal texts you sent to your pal Mark Meadows on January 6th. Is that right?
It sure is. I don't want any trouble. I take my duty as the Yoko Ono of the Supreme Court very seriously. All I want is a tidal wave of biblical vengeance to wash away the Biden crime family all the way to Gitmo, and then we release the Kraken.
Okay, well, that is terrific.
Justice Thomas, she doesn't talk to you about this stuff, though, right?
Some say.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it.
It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Today, Whoopi Goldberg got in the news, and this is from Hollywood Reporter, written by Hillary Lewis. It's entitled, Whoopi Goldberg calls out Clarence Thomas on The View. Quote, "You better hope they don't come for you next," unquote. Always a firebrand, you know. Whoopi Goldberg is among those calling out Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas for saying the court should reconsider past rulings that secured access to contraceptives and marriage equality. In his concurring opinion in the court's Friday ruling in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, which overturned Roe v. Wade, Thomas said the court, quote, should reconsider all of its court's substantive due process precedents, including Griswold, Lawrence, and Obergefell cases that made contraception, gender relationships and same-gender marriages, respectively, legal across the U.S. Quote, because any substantive due process decision is demonstrably erroneous, unquote, Thomas wrote. Quote, we have a duty to correct the error established in those precedents, unquote. Since then, a number of commentators, including Samuel L. Jackson, have pointed out that Thomas's opinion tellingly didn't reference the court's ruling in Loving versus Virginia, which allowed for interracial marriages like the one between Thomas and his wife. Goldberg wondered where the court would stop in terms of assessing rights that were not explicitly stated in the original version of the Constitution. Quote, what's next, as Clarence Thomas is signaling? They would like to get rid of contraception, unquote, Goldberg said during an extended discussion on Monday's View about Friday's Dobbs ruling and what's next. Quote, do you understand, sir? No, because you don't have to use it. You better hope that they don't come for you, Clarence, and say you should not be married to your wife. Who happens to be white, unquote. She also suggested that the court might want to revive the, quote, 3/5 clause, unquote, applying to enslaved people. Quote, we were not in the Constitution either, unquote, Goldberg said of her and Thomas. Quote, we were not even people in the Constitution. You better hope that no one says you're not in the Constitution, you're back to being a quarter of a person, because that's not going to work either, unquote. MSNBC's Joe Scarborough also took issue with Thomas's opinion on Monday Morning Joe. Quote, he talked about how contraception rights should be reviewed again. He talked about marriage equality, how that should be opened up. He talked about what consenting adults can do in the privacy of their bedrooms. That should be taken up. But he didn't, for some reason, talk about loving. He didn't talk about interracial marriages, unquote. He continued, quote, I saw that as being so typical of these Republicans, these so-called pro-life Republicans, and what they would do for their own children, what they would do for their own loved ones if medically necessary, if there was a crisis, and yet what they won't do for poor women in rural states that are thousands of miles away from where they can have a safe procedure, unquote. Yeah, so like I said, that case, Loving, you know, obviously he doesn't want to mention that because that would put a monkey wrench in this whole goddamn argument about Roe versus Wade, okay, and other things. But Whoopi's right. I mean, aside from the fact that, you know, when the Constitution was written, you know, black people weren't even really considered people, okay? They were just commodities to be used like, you know, we use little robots and stuff, you know, to do things, okay? But you know, the thing is that what Clarence Thomas was doing was all in line about what he said he was going to do, okay, back in '93 or whenever the hell he started, that he was going to make Democrats' lives a living hell because of that Anita Hill problem that came up, okay? Wasn't something that was created by Democrats. This was a completely, you know, personal thing that went on between Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas, okay, and he got pissed, all right, and to this day Republicans will still trash Anita Hill, okay, and not even consider that Thomas ever did anything, okay, and that's what they do. I mean, look at Roger Ailes, for Christ's sake, at Fox News, and he's harassing all the women. How long did that shit go on? Nobody say anything, okay? How long? Those people, they didn't want to lose their job over there. They were getting paid decent money, all right, and so they put up with it. And you know, when a woman excuses it by saying, well, maybe that's the way it is, no, it isn't the way it works, okay, because a guy's never asked to drop his pants in front of another guy so he can show off his, you know. So if women are doing that and not the men, then clearly that's not the way it works. Women need to understand that right now. There's never a time when a man has to show off anything to a boss, you know, to get him off. So if we believe in equality, then what goes for men has to go for women too. But like I said, it's more of the same from the Republicans. Do as I say, not as I do. Okay, that's what they want. And to me, that doesn't have any place in the Bible, because the Bible doesn't even support that kind of thought. But yet, that's what these motherfuckers do every day when they live their lives. They tell everybody how they have to live their lives, and in secret, they're out there doing all the things they're telling us we can't do. Okay, how many Republican women have had abortions? You'd probably drop dead, shocked, because of how many of them actually do the opposite of what they support. Okay. There wouldn't be so many women right now in this country upset about this Roe versus Wade thing if some of the Republican women weren't a part of that crowd. Okay? But you never see anybody that's even religious backing up what they say. How many priests, they caught, molesting kids, for Christ's sake? Yet if they weren't priests and they were just people like you or I, they'd be in prison, probably dead because some other prisoner, beat the living hell out of them, because you know what they think about pedophiles in there, okay? But no, these priests get protected by the church. I mean, even the church is corrupted, okay? And yet we're supposed to take our cues from them on how we live our lives. Because the church doesn't like abortion, we shouldn't allow that to happen. Fuck that, because Hitler didn't like Jewish people, we're not supposed to like them either. Give me a break. I'm sorry, but the church isn't always right. Why? Because it's run by regular human beings, and human beings are flawed by nature. And whatever human beings create, they also destroy. Okay, which is why America right now is in the shape that it's in. It was created by men who were flawed, and as a result, it's crumbling in on itself. Okay, because nothing a man ever makes, or anybody, can last forever. Nothing. How many times in our world have we created empires and they've always disappeared, and all that's left are some stones and things buried under the sand? Okay, we've had so much taken away from us over the centuries that humanity's been here, and that should be enough evidence to prove what I just said, that mankind cannot create anything that lasts. It always falls apart. Okay, there's no such thing as anything perfect by man. We always mess it up, and that's what we're doing. We got people in this country who, for whatever reason, only think of themselves. They don't think of the larger picture. They don't think about how their actions affect others. Okay, they don't think about that. To them, everything is black and white. When you ask them to think in that shade of gray, they can't. They don't understand. It's like they have to be extra intelligent in order to understand why we have a shade of gray on an issue here, because it can't always be black and white. To be fair, for a law to be fair, it has to be open for interpretation. It can't be that strict, because we're imperfect. The law can't be absolute. Okay, and until people are perfect, then laws can be absolute, because we never have to worry about anybody breaking them. But because we don't live our lives in a perfect way, no law can ever be considered absolute. All right, there has to be an exception for each individual case that they see. Okay, if you're not really looking at the case, then obviously your attitude is always going to be black and white, no matter what. Okay, when somebody says that a person can't have an abortion if they were raped by their father, that is a black and white thinker. Okay, that obviously is a black and white thinker, and that person is not smart enough to understand a shade of gray about that. They may not like the idea of a father raping his daughter, okay, but according to them, the rules say no abortion, so hey, that's what happens, no abortion. Okay, maybe what we ought to do, instead of trying to fight to get abortion legalized, is say, okay, so if the father rapes the daughter, let's increase the punishment. Let's put, a huge fine on the bastard, like $250,000. Put him in prison for 10 years with that fine, okay? Have him, give him a vasectomy or whatever the hell, and denut the bastard, okay? And make that motherfucker pay, okay? Make him suffer. Put him on a blacklist. We got the blacklist here for everybody that's a pedophile. Put him on a blacklist. Okay, and make sure that's public information. Really beat that fucker down. That's what we need to do if you want to stop, people having. Because I'll tell you, unless, I mean, if we can't take care of this problem one way, then we got to take it the other way. Okay, because men, you know, in a sense, this is their issue. This is an issue because a woman can't get pregnant on her own. A guy has to be involved, right? So if the guy gets the girl pregnant, okay, and he didn't ask her if, you know, if she really wanted to have a child with him, okay, then he's at fault because, hey, you didn't ask. You just went ahead and did it, and she, you know, you didn't ask. So you're responsible. You're going to have to take care of that child too, just like she's going to have to do it. You're responsible. You're either going to take care of that child or we're going to put you in prison. Okay, until the kid turns 18. You know, you're going to have to spend 18 years in prison. Okay, in the meantime, you can think about, you know, what you did and you know, changing that woman's life the way you did. So, you know, I think, you know, we have to come down hard on men about issues like that when it comes to making children, because yes, a child is an important thing. Okay, and it's still, you know, people still debate over when a person stops being a cell to a person that's actually starting to be a life form or something. Okay, that's always going to be an item for debate because science can't actually be 100% on that part. And I don't think the religious people care much about what science thinks anyway about that, so they take that argument out of our hands, basically, because they don't want doctors getting involved in the discussion. Because where they come from, it's on the Bible. Bible has absolutely no specifics in there at all. It's all just convoluted stories about people that may or may not even existed. Okay, we don't know. And they're just stories, you know, like Star Trek novels put in a goddamn big binder. Okay, I mean, that's all it is. Okay, and we can learn something from it, or we can ignore it. But there's nothing in there that says you got to read this goddamn thing cover to cover. No, I mean, it's just a book. Okay, there might be some facts in there, especially the story about Jesus, but I'm sure it's not exactly the way it happened, the way they spell it out in the book. Okay, I'm sure of that. After 2,000 years, what the hell can actually be 100% anyway when you pass down a story like that, you know, from generation to generation? Okay, facts get lost over time. But, you know, at my point here is that with abortion and all that, if you can't get it the way you want it, okay, if we can't get it back, if we find that we're unable to get it back, then maybe we need to pass laws that come down harder. And if the Republicans come out against that, then you know what this is. It's all misogyny. Okay? It's all misogyny. It's all about men putting their thumb on women. Okay? Oppressing them. Making them subservient to men. Okay? And any woman who still wants to call herself Republican ought to be fucking ashamed. They ought to be ashamed because they're not on your side anymore. They never were, in fact. I mean, it's just, that's the way it is. They made you feel like, oh, you're wanted in the party and stuff like that, but you know what they think about you. Okay? You can't not know unless you live in a shell all your life. I mean, Jesus, how stupid can you get? I mean, you look at society all around you and you see what happens to women on a daily basis in this country. Okay? I mean, they don't even give a shit about the kids. Okay? Once a baby is born, they don't care what happens to that child. Oh, but they're out all on the street holding up filthy signs of fetuses and stuff all bloodied up and everything, okay, like they care so much, okay? Yet they're the first people to sign off on a war. They're the first people to, you know, leave your kid out in the cold without any money, fend for themselves. They're there to take away benefits that could help society to keep it going. How is this, you know, how could this be happening from people who care about the value of a life? I ask you, because it's all bullshit. It's all political in their eyes, okay? It's all political. Everything they do is all political. There's nothing genuine about that party, especially now. Before it was harder to find, but now it's impossible because you can't depend on them for a goddamn thing now. Even when something that needs to be done that benefits even Republicans, they're not going to do it because, oh, a Democrat's the president. You know, we're not going to do it. So it goes to show you how they think. They don't care what the hell is out there, they don't care. They unless there's a Republican president, it's never even going to see the light of day, the problem, okay? But even then, you know, the chances that they would ever accomplish anything that's good for this country are nil, because I look back through history and I look at the things they supported and the things they passed, and nothing ever benefited society, okay? Nothing. Always the rich, always the wealthy that they protect, always. If you dig deep enough, you find that out, okay? And that's why the right wing is always impoverished, why their states are always poor, okay? And you drive through there and it looks like a friggin' bomb went off in their little towns. It's because the Republicans don't care, you know? It's all about what benefits the party, what benefits them, you know, their constituents, their big supporters. That's who's getting all their money. God, I wish these people would wake the hell up and stop breathing in that bullshit. I mean, their heads are so spun, they don't even know where the hell up and down is anymore. Christ, it just, God. I mean, when people vote against themselves, you have to say, look, you can't vote anymore, buddy, because you're actually, when you hurt yourself, you're hurting other people that you don't even know. Okay, your vote is actually destroying, you know, my child's rights, my wife's rights, my rights. What you're doing is affecting everybody. Okay, it's not a vote that's supposed to support you or do anything good for this country. It's a shot, not across the bow, but right into the bow is what you're doing. You're waging war on half your country. Okay, that's what you're doing. These votes are being used as bullets in this fucking tirade from Clarence Thomas. Okay, that's what's going on here. This is not a civil war, but, you know, a political war. You know, votes being used as bullets here against the people in this country. And there's only one result that's going to come from all of this, and that's the destruction of America. Because when people don't get what they want, when their rights are being taken away, as Clarence Thomas is going to try and do, one piece at a time, what do you think is going to happen? Eventually, people are going to rise up. Okay, they won't sit on this forever. Okay, you see how mad they are now about abortion. What do you think is going to happen when these states start practicing what they've been, you know, promising they were going to do, and you start seeing more women going through horror stories? Eventually, that's going to create martyrs. It's going to create more momentum against the Republicans, and the Republicans, not knowing what the hell they can do with themselves with all these people rising against them, they're going to get more militant in their thinking. They're going to become more oppressive, and that is what's going to spark the fight right there. That's what's going to start it right there, is because when the Republicans try to do something and it backfires on them, they get bitchy, they get ugly, they get vindictive, just like Clarence Thomas. Okay, he got caught with his pants down with Anita Hill. He got mad about that. His friggin' closet was exposed to the public, and he resented that forevermore. Okay, and he vowed he was going to go after every Democrat because of it. So, like I said, that's how it is. That's how it is with, you know, with this whole matter here that we're dealing with. Okay, this was not done because of constitutional reasons. This was all done out of spite. All of it. All right, so that's it for today. I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. Please subscribe and comment, and keep your eyes open for any local COVID news that you might see or on the radio or see in the newspaper. Okay, as we're still dealing with the pandemic on top of everything else that's going on in this country. They always like to pick the worst time at the moment, you know, to do something. Okay, so do you know, just keep up to date with that and protect yourself. And I like to hear from commenters and see what you say or think about things that I talk about. So I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.